This video covers a range of miscellaneous topics related to the sponsorship module. These are all topics that don't fit neatly into any grouping. Let's start with the sponsorship data upload. It does double duty. It allows you to upload new sponsored name records and update existing records. This is the only update or Excel upload process that will allow you to update existing records in Denari. All others only allow for uploading new records. When you go to the Sponsorship tab and then Sponsorship Data Upload, each browser will act a little differently. Internet Explorer will display the instruction sheet as you see here on the page. Firefox will give you an opportunity to download the instructions and display it in Excel. Chrome will try to download the page. Safari and others have their own methods as well. You will be creating an Excel spreadsheet, and the first thing to note is that the process doesn't work with the new Excel file format that produces a file extension with the XLSX extension as the instructions show you here. It must have the older XLS extension. So if you're using a newer version of Excel, you can simply choose to save your file in an older format. Let's look at the instructions. The first column is in the sample are field names. They are things like SP code, name type, name, etc. This is a little confusing in that they are shown in a column because when you create your spreadsheet, the field names will go across the top in the first row. Each column will be data that you enter for the sponsored names. I've created my own sample here to show you how yours might look. Let's go back to the instructions. Note that the only required field is the SP code field. All the others are optional. If you're uploading new sponsored name records, the code you put in this column will be what populates the code field in the sponsored name record when it's created by Denari. So it must be unique. You can't have two sponsored names with the same code. If you're updating existing records, it is this field that Denari will use to identify your existing records. For example, let's say you have a sponsored name record with the code ABC4 and you want to add the country and region information to that code. Of course, the easiest way to change one record is to just go to that record and change it, but we'll assume that you're updating a bunch of records at once, but we'll focus on just this one. The first column will have the SP code field name in cell 1A. The column next to it will have the header country, and the third column header will have region. Both fields are ones that can be used in this update process. Not all of the fields on the sponsored name page can be included in the process, only the ones listed here on the instruction page. The second row and on down then, of course, will contain the values that you want to update in your sponsored name record. It's important to note here that the codes that you're using have to have been created prior to the upload process. In other words, Denari will not create codes on the fly. It's also important to note that the values that you put into the spreadsheet will be the codes from those code records that you've created. So in other words, when you create a new code, you of course have to give it a description and a code. It's that code that Denari recognizes, not the description. So once we've got our spreadsheet ready to go, we can go to the update page where we are now. Click the Upload Excel Spreadsheet link, which will allow you to then browse and select your spreadsheet. Now you can hit the Update Sponsorship Data button. Once you click this, there's no going back. I would suggest that you create a spreadsheet with only a couple of names for your first try to be sure everything is working the way you expect. It's easier to delete 2 or 3 names than it is 500. A report will then go to your inbox that will tell you what happened, and your new or updated names will appear in your data almost immediately. There are some fields on this page that require some explanation, and they are the date fields. The first set of fields on the page are month, day, and year. And if you look here in this column, you'll see that those correspond to the birthday field in the sponsored name record. Denari will import the date in 3 pieces, the month, the day, and the year, so you'll have one column for each. Let's take a look at my sample again to see how that works. Here we have the column for month, the column for day, and the column for year. The next set of dates in the sample correspond to the annual letter date, and those field names are a month, a day, and a year, and then there are other fields on down that work in the same way. The rest of the fields are fairly self-explanatory, but remember that the values you put into the cells for these fields need to be the code field from the codes that you have previously set up, not the description field. Our next topic is photo cards. Photo cards are a document that represents a sponsored name. It can contain a photo and information that can be found in some of the fields in the sponsored name record, things like education, favorite subject, community, etc. You can choose the fields you want, as well as add notes fields for a longer text description. Typically, a photo card is something you can give to a prospective sponsor or existing sponsors to update them on the status of their child. The first step in the process is to set up the template. Usually that's done by a Denari staff person, but could be done by one of your staff who have some HTML skills. We will work with you to design the card with the information you want it to include. To run the cards, you first go to the Sponsorship tab, and then Sponsored Names, and select a child. We'll move to the Queue for Photo Card checkbox and check that box, and then hit Save at the top. Now you're set to print the photo card for this sponsored name. So now we go back to the Sponsorship tab, click on Print Photo Cards, and then we click the Print Photo Card button. Your job will be sent off for processing, and you'll find the output file in your inbox. Denari will print a photo card for each sponsored name record where the box is checked, and it will then uncheck that box. And by the way, there is a way to check a group of names using Sponsored Name Segmenter using the filters like community, age, etc. That's covered in the video on Sponsored Name Segmenter. There's one thing to consider here regarding the use of Denari's photo cards. They are produced as an HTML page. That means that you will open the file in your browser and will need to print them from there. They are set up as an 8.5 by 11 page, but you can control the size by controlling the size of the margins when you print. But your success in printing photo cards will depend on your skill at printing from your browser. Let's discuss now the concept of dropped. Let's go back to the Sponsorship tab, Sponsored Names, and we'll select our name record. When we scroll down to the status field, we see some of the options that are available. One of them, of course, is dropped. We can drop a sponsored name by clicking that button at the top of the page. Dropped simply means that the sponsored person or sponsored name record has left your program and will not be coming back. Dropping a record is similar to deleting it. If the dropped person were ever to come back to the program, you will need to re-enter them as a new record. And while we're here, let's discuss classes or classifications. They are codes that work just like classifications for donor name records. They're used in the Sponsored Name Segmenter as filters for a report. For example, suppose you want to get a list of all sponsored names who live in a specific community who have blue eyes. You can use the community field in the Sponsored Name segment, but there's no place to store the color of eyes. You could then create a classification called blue eyes and assign that to all the sponsored names that are appropriate. So let's do that. Click on the Sponsorship tab and then Sponsored Name Class. Normally we would click Add New to create a new record, but I'm going to click on the blue eyes one that's already here. And if you were creating this new, you would give it a code and give it a description and hit Save. And now we're ready to assign that to our sponsored names. So we would click on the Sponsorship tab again, Sponsored Names, and select our name. We'll click on the Classes button. We'll find the blue eyes classification over here in the list, highlight it, click the arrow to move it over to the selected side. Now we can use Sponsored Name Segmenter to get a list of names that have the classification blue eyes and any other filters that we want to use from that page. For more information on Sponsored Name Segmenter, please see the review of the video on that topic. The Sponsors button, let's go back to that sponsored name. And here we find that Sponsors button here at the top of the page. If this name record has sponsors or pledges linked to the record, this button will show you who they are. It gives you a complete history of the sponsorship activity for this name. You'll also notice that we have a current sponsors field. That drop-down field, and it will be a drop-down field when there are open pledges connected to this sponsored name record. This drop-down field will show you who those open pledges or sponsors are. Let's look at the sponsored name search screen. By default, Denari only shows you those names that are available based on the system status field in the name record. If you'd like to see all names, both available and sponsored, uncheck the Only Available Names checkbox here at the top. This search screen works like all the other search screens in Denari in that you can use the 4 fields at the top to search for specific names. You can change the default filters if needed, and you can use 1 or all 4 to create a more narrow scope of results. Child grade order promotion is our next topic. Denari gives you the ability to update the grade level for your sponsored names. To use this feature, you will first need to set up your grade codes. So let's go to the Sponsorship tab and then Sponsorship Codes. If we click Add New to create a new code or a new grade, in the Code Group field, we would choose Grade. In the description field, we would put whatever the information we want, whatever that grade is called. In the code field, we would put a rank number, a code for that description. And in the rank order field, we'll put a number. And these numbers for the rank order are important in this field. Rank 1, when we run the update, will update to rank 2 to rank 3, etc. So you will need to think that through ahead of time and set up your ranks accordingly. When you're ready to update grades, go to the Sponsorship tab and then Child Grade Order Promotion. You have the ability here to change the order if you want by changing the numbers and then clicking Save Grade. When you're ready, we'll click the Promote Children button over here and note that the text on the page tells us you can remove a grade from the process by giving it an order of less than 0. But when we click this Promote Children button, all of the grades will upgrade according to that rank order that we mentioned a moment ago. And then our last topic is the Child Change Report. We find that by going to the Sponsorship tab and then Child Change Report. This report does pretty much what you'd expect from the title. It will show you all of the changes that have been made to the sponsored name records in the date range. When you run it, by default, it opens on your screen as you can see, and then you can go to the relative date range field and make a selection. Then click the View Report button, and the report will run and show you all of the changes that have been made to sponsored names in that date range. This concludes this video on miscellaneous sponsorship topics. If you have any questions, please contact us through the support button at the top of Denari.